Hello and welcome to episode 263 of bookcareers.com live. If you're watching this on YouTube, hello. It's the first time it's just been me alone talking to the camera. Today I want to talk about some of the myths in book publishing. We had a Book Careers Job Club earlier this week, and when I looked through the questions, there was lots of repetitive questions about several myths of publishing that I thought we'd long dispersed of, but obviously not. So, what I want to do is talk to you today about some of those myths. And if you talk to somebody in book publishing and they're still telling you these myths, then that gives you an indication that they're not actually serving you well and giving you the best up-to-date advice. So let's start. The first myth is connections, is that you have to know people in publishing in order to get a publishing job. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And in fact, under most diversity, inclusion, and equity policies, knowing somebody could perhaps, in some cases, hinder your application rather than progress it. What you do need to know is where book publishing jobs are advertised and how to apply. And book publishing jobs are advertised absolutely everywhere now. There are some key places like the bookseller.com, recruitment consultants such as Inspired Selection, Redwood Publishing Recruitment, and Think Selection. But you should be looking at Indeed, you should be looking at company websites. There's a whole long list of resources in my book, How to Job Search in Book Publishing, which will show you all the unofficial ways of where book publishing jobs may be advertised. But you don't need to know someone to get a job in book publishing. So that is that myth completely dispersed. The second myth is that your degree discipline is important, as is whether you have done a degree in either publishing or a related subject. So, whilst there might be entry level jobs that are few and far between that say you don't need a degree at all, the majority of book publishers aren't looking for degree level students for entry level jobs. Obviously, if you've got a degree, that is great, but you'll find that they're not reliant on candidates who just have a degree and as their education. But in the same way, they're looking at candidates who don't have degrees because goes back to that diversity, equity, and inclusion policies where the publishers are very aware that they need to bring in people from different backgrounds, different thought processes. And those different backgrounds could be lower social economic groups, could be different ethnicities, different locations, whether you were the first person in your family to go to university, whether you've got free school meals, things like that. So they're looking at things that are far more general than degree. And I don't have a degree, or I never had a degree when I started my career in book publishing at the age of 16. And apart from even then, apart from editorial, no department was adamant that you had to have a degree to work in book publishing. And the degree discipline actually came in when publishers were trying to filter down the number of applicants. It wasn't that you actually needed a degree for the job, but what they wanted to do was to filter out the number of applicants. So they said that you need to have a degree to apply. That's what one of two publishers did. And it was sort of taken, oh, you must have a degree to work in book publishing. The other point to that is that your degree discipline is not important. In fact, I've spoken to somebody recently who was recruiting who said that they tend not to look at candidates with English degrees They want people who've done different degrees that might not be humanities, it might be sciences, might be different subjects altogether, but they're not looking at so much at the degree discipline. And the only time a degree discipline is important is if, for instance, you want to work in a specialist field, like you want to work in art publishing, then perhaps a degree in art history could be useful. But it's not prerequisite. And I know many people who've done psychology, philosophy, geography, history, who've all ended up working at art publishers. And the same in sciences is that if you have a science degree, then the academic publishers will love you. But it's not a prerequisite to get a job in publishing. What you might find, though, is if you're working on a science journal and you don't have a science degree or a scientific background, then you might find your meter ceiling in promotions when they're looking for like the new publisher for the journal or senior roles on that journal. But it's an open playing field, really. And what I say, I've probably got people nodding their head in agreement and people shaking their head, no, 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 that's not the case at all. But the truth is that publishing is open for all. And I can't emphasize that enough. Publishing is open for all. And it's really important that we've got to get that message across as an industry. Now, the third myth follows on from that, and that is that you must have publishing work experience to get a publishing job. No, you do not need publishing work experience. What publishers are looking for at entry level is office experience. And that office experience could come from anywhere. When I talk to recruiters, and by recruiters, that means anybody in book publishing who could offer you a job, not necessarily a recruitment consultant, that might be a manager, might be a senior manager, might be somebody from HR or recruitment within a publisher, anybody who can offer you a job as a recruiter, they tell me the same things, that what they're looking for in entry-level candidates is someone who can type, who can sit at a computer, open a document and start typing, who knows how to lay out a letter if they have to write a letter, or knows how to write an email for work if they have to write emails or reply to emails. Someone who knows how to perhaps manage a busy email inbox, and by busy email inbox, that might mean 200 plus emails a day, where you have to answer those 200 or process them in some way, because you can be damn sure when you open your computer tomorrow, there'll be another 200 coming in. So by the end of the week, it's like 1,000 emails. So it's about knowing how to process emails, how to manage that kind of workload. And that also comes in, one of the key things that publishers look for is somebody who can organize and prioritize their own work. And that's why in my book there's a prioritization test, because that's often sent out to candidates at entry level as part of the interview process, to show that you know how to put tasks in order of urgency, priority, and importance. And also managing a diary, booking appointments, might be booking travel, that might be booking restaurants, it might be booking conference spaces, but somebody who knows how to manage a diary, someone who can go into a meeting and take minutes. Even with AI, you might find that the Zoom meetings or the Teams meetings are transcribed and you don't need to do the minutes, but if you're having a face-to-face editorial meeting, there will need to be somebody in there taking the minutes. And so being able to take minutes at meetings, type them up, circulate them. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, and of course, answer the phone. I don't know if you've noticed, but none of those tasks are exclusive to book publishing. but they probably are 80% of an entry level publishing job, along with things like filing and photocopying, if anybody still does photocopying. But it's 80% of an entry level job. And none of it's publishing specific. So you don't need publishing experience to get an entry level job. You need office experience. An office experience you can get anywhere. You can get some of that experience whilst you're studying, not because you've gone and necessarily worked in an office, but because you've used some of those skills while studying or in education or maybe in your family environment or in something you might volunteered for. So you don't need publishing experience. You do not need a publishing internship to get a publishing job. The publisher, when they recruit, is looking at your office experience and your skills, as well as other things like your spelling and grammar and your interest in actually working for them and their list. And I did just mention something about voluntary work. Now, this is another myth which I think is mostly dispelled, but we need to completely bat that down. And that is, you do not work for free for a publisher in order to get a publishing job. Do not do it, please. And any publisher that's offering you unpaid work experience is, particularly if you've finished your education, is probably, and I'm not a legal expert, I tend not to get involved in the legal things, that they're probably breaking the minimum wage and the living wage guidelines if they're letting you work for free. The other point I want to say, and I say this a lot, so if you do a 2-week work experience placement, Penguin Random House, they will pay you for those 2 weeks. So one of the biggest employers within the book publishing industry pays everybody who does work for them. Now, on the other end of the scale, there's me at Book Careers, and I pay everybody who does work for me. And as you know, Book Careers is me with the help of Caitlin. Now, if Penguin Random House can afford to pay everybody, and I can afford to pay everybody, then every company and organisation in between needs to pay people. Unpaid work is not acceptable. We are in 2025. There is a huge cost of living crisis. If you really want diversity, equity, and inclusion and publishing to be open for all, then every single person that works for book publishing needs to be paid appropriately. Okay, now the other myth now is that all publishing jobs are based in London. Now, the majority of publishing jobs might be based in London and Oxford, but what we're seeing more and more of is publishers all over the country. You've got publishers with regional offices, and you've also got publishers that do allow remote working, and that's fully remote working is allowed by 1 or 2 companies. So I keep seeing all the jobs are in London. All the jobs are in London, and they're not. You might have to look a little bit harder to find publishing jobs in your area, but it is, of course, traditionally a very London-centric or southeast-centric industry, but you are seeing publishers more receptive to remote working, to hybrid working, and to having regional offices. Okay, so please try not to think that all publishing jobs are in London. There's loads of other myths and other things I could talk about, but I think it's probably best to leave it there today. May you all be doing a job you love and being paid the salary that you so richly deserve. And if you're not, we need to talk. If you're looking for a job in book publishing, please subscribe to this channel and visit bookcareers.com for further resources, including how to access one-to-one career guidance. And don't forget to buy the book, How to Job Search in Book Publishing, The Ultimate Insider's Guide. May you all be doing a job you love and being paid the salary that you so richly deserve.